Cool.
Sure.
All right. Well, welcome everyone, and thanks for being here. My name is Brooks Johnson. I'm a business reporter at the Star Tribune. I'll be moderating today's panel, Launching Naturally Minnesota, the Evolution of Grow North and the Food and Ag Entrepreneur Ecosystem in Minnesota. Audience members, please submit questions in the chat, and hopefully we'll be able to answer some or all of them at the end of today's session. First, though, I'd like our panelists to introduce themselves and talk about just generally their involvement in the food industry. Allison, start us off.
Sure. Well, hopefully most of the people joining know who I am, Allison Hohn, Executive Director of Grow North and now Naturally Minnesota. I mentioned it earlier if you joined early. I'm a recovering food scientist, so I spent time at both Land O'Lakes and Target and acted as a mentor and consultant in the food and ag bev industry for startups. So had a little bit of a line into this ecosystem prior to joining Grow North, and I've been with Grow North for just over 2 years.
Awesome. Katrina, tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Katrina Tolentino. I am the Executive Director of the Naturally Network. Lifelong, food eater, consumer, and I'm really thrilled to be in the consumer goods space. I'm currently leading up the national organization for Naturally Network. And prior to that, I was running Naturally Austin, which is one of our chapters, which very much, similar to what Allison will be doing with Naturally Minnesota. So really excited to kind of be able to bring a national lens as well as give a little bit of insight into what the community can expect from the regional lead. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So the news of excellent. Corinne.
Thank you.
All right. We are just getting to your introduction. So if you're ready, Corinne, introduce yourself, your role in the food space, and what we're going to learn about today.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Corinne Schindler. I have been in the natural and organic food space for a number of years. I cut my teeth as the general manager out in Stillwater as the very first general manager of that food co-op in the 80s. And since then have gone on to help organize purchasing cooperatives, both at a national and global level, including NCG and the Independent Natural Food Retailers Association, both of which are housed here in the Twin City area. And now I'm really excited to be part of this new endeavor with launching Naturally Minnesota. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Corinne. Glad you could join. And I think that's a great segue into the news of the day. Grow North has joined forces with the Naturally Network, now being known as Naturally Minnesota. Allison, what does this mean for the organization and who it serves?
Yeah, so first up, from a setup standpoint, we will be shifting where Naturally Minnesota will be our leading brand and what the organization will come to market as. Grow North is going to remain as an initiative of it. As anyone who's participated in our events knows, we have our hands in a lot of different pots, and Grow North branding has showed up in a couple of great places. And so as we go through this, we will continue to have Grow North show up. But it is all rolling up under Naturally Minnesota, so it is pretty much one and the same. From an ecosystem standpoint, we're really excited about this. When Grow North was stood up in 2017, they actually visited Naturally Boulder and said, how do you start a support ecosystem for food and ag entrepreneurs? And we basically, stole their playbook, hit copy paste. So if you look at what they do and what we do, it is the Venn diagram of a circle. It is education and resources, it is membership, it's networking events. It's really about forming that connectivity and being the front door for food and ag entrepreneurs. And so it's been, aside from the legality side of, joining a new organization, the transition I think is going to be extremely smooth for us. Everything we do is already laddering up to how Naturally operates. And so from what will change, I would say the biggest difference is going to be what we're doing is just going to get a little bit bigger and a little bit better with stronger support systems. Corinne is the chair of our board, so now we have more support infrastructure there. And basically, the pitch slam we will be having as part of our launch party, the winner is going to get a booth at Expo East courtesy of New Hope and gets to participate in the National Pitch Slam next year. So there's instant value that we're able to give to our community from this. And so for those who are maybe looking to expand beyond our ecosystem, our region, the beautiful thing is with all of these other major cities as chapters, we have direct lines in on getting warm intros to it's the brokers, the distributors, the retailers, who's doing what in those spaces. the connectivity we're really getting is something that's going to be critical to expanding our reach and our support for our ecosystem here. So I'm thrilled at this, and it really is expanding what we'd be able to offer. If if we had not joined, I think we would have been limited to what we're doing here. So I'm really excited about that.
Great, thank you. Katrina, can you tell us more about the Naturally Network and why you're bringing Minnesota on board?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been such a great pleasure to work with Allison and Corinne on this, as this partnership is very near and dear to us. So Naturally Network is the largest natural, organic, and better for you consumer goods industry organization in the country. We have about 5,000, actually closer to about 6,000 members now, and growing, with an audience of about 20,000 across the country. The Naturally Network is really anchored by our regional chapters. And so the work that I do on the national side is support the success of our regional ecosystems, as well as create opportunities for how all of these ecosystems really connect the dots. So, I think the word that I like to use is connective tissue. So all of these organizations across the country, essentially, we play a convener role. So anyone in the consumer goods industry, whether you're a founder, a service provider, an investor, we have a home for you as part of that, and there's a way for you to plug in. And all of these regional activities really ladder up to national initiatives. So Pitch Slam, as Allison mentioned, is a really great example of that. So as Allison said, the Pitch Slam winner from Minnesota will be part of the Naturally Network National Pitch Slam in partnership with New Hope Network at Expo East. So Expo East Pitch Slam moving forward will be a Naturally Network Pitch Slam. So immediately out of the gate, we're able to build that national connectivity for the regional ecosystem, and the winner gets a booth and at Expo East 2023. And New Hope is also, as part of our partnership on the network side, also able to provide a stipend for the brand to actually get to the show, right? We're really putting our money where our mouth is. A lot of our partners are really supporting the growth of early stage and emerging brands. And so we're just really thrilled to be connecting with Minnesota. And you mentioned, or you asked, why Minnesota? So I think what's really interesting is that your community is more mature. You have larger companies. You also bring a wealth of agriculture knowledge to the ecosystem that a lot of our other regional partners and chapters don't necessarily have. So part of our excitement is being able to take the expertise from Minnesota and cross-pollinating that across all of our regions. And so, as you can see, it's not just what the value that we can provide the regional chapters. There's so much expertise in your regional community that we're excited to elevate across the country. So yeah, that's excited to kind of get started. But Pitch Slam is such a wonderful example of how the partnership here is at work.
Talk about how you see this situation fitting into the broader context of the food and ag ecosystem. Why is it a good fit, and what role do you see it playing?
I'm sorry, Brooks, you're breaking up a little bit. I'm having a hard time hearing you. No.
We've lost you, Brooks.
Corinne, I think the next question was for you, of how do you see the organization fitting into the broader context of Minnesota's food and ag ecosystem, good fit, good timing, some information.
Yeah, I think it's building off of both what Katrina and Allison have already indicated. I will add one little thing to Katrina's ending there about Minnesota, and that's that if you think about the population of the state of Minnesota, it pretty much fits in Brooklyn, New York. So it's always really interesting too when we look at the number of people we serve in the state. But I think what I really like about this is it's such an excellent fit, and no pun intended, but it's a really organic evolution. When we started National Network, which I was on the leading circle of that, the thought was like, how do we integrate this into Minnesota and the work that's already happening here, and particularly the work that Grow North has been doing for a number of years. And what I see is the ability now to just take this whole overall system and then add the pieces that were missing for us too. So improving the ability to have a network and a community that's working along the entire supply chain and working across the state. And I think the egg and food system itself is just going to just get better, and we can work together more on finding solutions that we need to get to quickly when we start to think about what's coming up next in our entrepreneurial world. Is Brooks coming back? Technology today.
Has not been my friend.
So I'll ask the next question. It goes to Katrina, which is, we'll just play round robin here while Brooks is getting himself set up. Katrina, this is where we get to talk a little bit about how this will improve access to capital and how will Naturally Minnesota and Naturally Network help to unlock more investment for our food founders and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and that's a great question, right? Early stage emerging brands, it's all about capital runway. And I think a great example of this is the MO Fellowship powered by Nielsen IQ, so which is our one of the programs that we have. So we have these national programs that all of our members across the ecosystem can apply for. We also bring partnerships into each regional community. So as far as funding goes, I think we have to, kind of more broadly think about capital. So of course, investors that are in our naturally community also take and pay attention to what's going on in the regional ecosystems, the pitch lands, and really kind of take note of what's up and coming and connect with those founders. But I think the partnerships that the network also builds, including access to non-dilutive capital and bringing in more of those resources, also helps expand access to resources and capital in general for founders. So I think it's, when I'm thinking about capital, I think sometimes people think just straight the cash investment, which of course every founder wants, but I think that the Naturally Network and the capital that we bring is that and more, with all of the partnerships that we can bring into the ecosystem. So that's non-dilutive capital, that's the retailer access, it's the pitch competitions that really elevate the brands, and there's cash prizes that are involved in that, but there's also a lot of other partnerships that help brands get that capital. So Spins and Nielsen IQ are great examples of that, right? I think Allison, Spins is providing you all with an in-kind prize for Pitch Slam.
Both Spins and Nielsen are providing in-kind prizes for our Pitch Slam.
Incredible.
So, reports that normally cost a company, $10,000 to get, they'll be getting, reports from those companies to support the growth, which if you can't get access to that kind of data, especially as a early to mid-sized company, it can be very transformative for how you pitch, how you look at your own business building tactics and everything. So we're very excited about that being able to be offered for our winners. Brooks, you're back.
Oh, good. You can see me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I would add to that too, that I think it's probably one of the underexposed areas for us here in Minnesota is just the network of investors that's out there. And there's a huge network of investors just within the CPG food space that isn't necessarily well known to us, simply because we haven't had that same level of exposure that you often get on the coasts, simply because of the access to capital on the coasts in general, and everything from angel investors to private equity to venture capital, that I'm really excited to help bring to the table overall for this group of entrepreneurs, because that's one of the hardest things to find right now, is just the right fit for the right entrepreneur at the right time.
Yep, the capital angle is something that, there are groups here certainly working on the early stage. Groove Capital, Tundra Ventures as a part of Lunar. There are a number of others who are actively pursuing how do they better deploy capital. But having access to the coast, I think, is going to be huge for this. When I talk to entrepreneurs, one of the biggest things is I don't have enough capital. CPG is extremely capital intensive, whether it's how payment works out, how you have to have holding inventory, paying for ingredients, packaging, the list goes on. So that piece of the puzzle, I think, will be really important for entrepreneurs here. And the great thing, and I don't have as many stats I can roll off the top of my head. Danielle, who heads up Tundra, is really good at this, but Minnesota companies tend to do more with less, right? We're more resilient. Our cost of living is not as high. So the value of the dollar goes further here in investing in these companies. And unfortunately, Minnesotans tend to be a little more conservative on investing. And even though we have all these companies here, people really go towards the software or med tech, health tech. And it's faster returns. It's a longer game for CPG. And so educating investors and understanding the better way to invest, and that you can still get good returns. It might just take a little bit longer than you want, which I think great for a diverse portfolio of having returns hit at different times. But I know that's one thing we're excited. At Grow North, we've had a quarterly investor meeting where we convene investors just to have conversations around the market and such. And so I'm excited to pull some more people into those conversations. And it really helps me as the director of having kind of the little black book. So when entrepreneurs say, hey, we're about to start raising a round, I can say, great, what are you looking for? How much do you want to raise? And I can look at the theses of the companies, the VCs that we talk to and make warm intros where necessary. So I'm excited for that to only get better as we get more into the Naturally network.
Yeah, and it's facilitated access, right? I think that on the national side, because we have access to all tons of investors, retailers, and other resources that we can bring, we essentially also help facilitate their access to our regional chapters like Minnesota. So I think that, I think the launch party is very exciting because I already know that there's quite a few folks that are going to be coming in for that. And the Pitch Slam is going to be such a great moment to jumpstart the community.
We're very excited. I'm always here for a good party, so I'm pumped for that. Hopefully everyone tuning in, if you haven't registered, you should definitely join us. And if you've already registered for Food Ideas Week, you already have a ticket. So, don't double register.
Awesome. Well, if you can hear me, fingers crossed. Okay, cool. Katrina, I've got a question for you. You've led Naturally Austin and have seen what success looks other regional ecosystems with the Naturally network. What impact has Naturally had there, and how is that going to show up here?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? I think that, well, first and foremost, over and over, all of our members are looking for community, and access to resources can be facilitated by that, right? And so again, the role that we play in each of our regional chapters and on the national organization is as the convener. So having a convener organization in your ecosystem means that you're bringing all parts of the ecosystem in versus just an accelerator versus just a founder group, right? And so that really starts to formalize and really you start to see the cross-pollination of those different subgroups in each community at networking events, at topic specific sort of webinars and panels. And then I think some of the really incredible things that I've seen on the ground as your chapter gets stood up, I really encourage you all to join, because you'll find your co-founder at a Naturally Minnesota event. I've seen that several times just in the last 3 years. I've seen investors meet someone at a big event that a chapter is hosting, learn more about that founder, build a relationship, and get funding. I mean, I recently just heard that from a founder just 2 weeks ago. And so those are some of the, just really organic and real examples. And so I think those are some of the things that the community can expect. But I would also love to share that, it is the community investing in the community that makes it great. And so if you're in the ecosystem, jump in, and it's all about helping others alongside you. And I think that, leading Naturally Austin, that ethos and that sort of community culture is really important to foster. And I'm seeing that across our regional chapter. So I'm really excited to see what Naturally Minnesota culturally will look and feel like. And, I know that there's this big evolution, and I'm excited to be to get a front row seat, since I'm also going to be coming to your launch party.
Yay.
Well, and just to kind of build off of that, I 100% agree, right? The ecosystem is the community, and the community is made up of individuals. And unless people show up and participate and be there, then you don't have a community without it. And I think coming out of COVID, this is a really unique opportunity for the community in Minnesota to kind of jumpstart, show up, and really get involved. It's an awesome opportunity to now expand your reach beyond just our community here, get involved on a more national scale. And I think that's really the most important thing as we kind of build this chapter here, is that adjustment of what is the culture here, right? How, Minnesotans are notorious for working hard, often working alone, but they always are very gracious in supporting others when they can. And sometimes people don't always want to ask for help. And this is one of the rare cases where the faster you ask for help, the more aggressive your growth will be. And so I really want to encourage folks who are out there that this is the moment for you to really jump in and show up. And we're excited to have the launch party as that launch pad for it. And I know we have a number of, support orgs that are on right now. And the biggest key here is that, Grow North and Naturally, I know, wants to act as that front door. We're here to serve all the entrepreneurs because our programming is different than yours. It's not like we want, we're trying to take them from you or this way. I want to reiterate that we're really here to serve all entrepreneurs. And we know that they'll be at different stages of their journey and that they'll go to those different programs at different times. And the better we can help navigate those entrepreneurs, that's what we're here for. That's what I spend a good chunk of my time doing, is saying, who are you? What do you do? Where are you at? Okay, who can I connect you with right now? That's going to be the right time, right person, right resource. And so we're excited to continue to partner, with the Lunars and the Finovation Labs and AURI and all the other key programs we have in this network, because the beauty of Minnesota is we have a really robust ecosystem already. It's Twin Cities Startup Week, right? That's why we're all here. And so I'm really excited just for, being able to double down and expand that reach for everyone.
So I'm going to expand on this a little bit, and Brooke, jump in anytime that you need to get us to stop. But I often think of how we step back and we talk about this, and it's Twin City Startup Week. The network provides opportunities for mentoring and introductions and resource allocation and resource discovery. So I want to also indicate that this is the network, and Grow North also includes existing longstanding companies who have gone through many things and yet show up because we all continue to have something to learn from each other. And regardless of whether you're a huge existing already CPG company or one that's just starting off the ground, there's some really big things that are available that we don't think about. So we often don't think to show up because we think it's not for me. It's only about this group of people or that group of people. But the whole idea of the community is that we have to have all segments represented in order for it to be successful as a local, state, national, global community. And when I was doing the co-op work with retailers, oftentimes they said, well, large retailers have nothing in common with small retailers, and we don't really have a reason to have a conversation. And yet it would be like, well, no, actually, smaller retailers are closer to their customer than a larger retailer. And I can learn from that closeness to the customer. I can learn from the entrepreneurs and the startups. What are they challenged with? Because eventually my business is going to be challenged with that too. So keep in mind that this whole ecosystem is exactly that. It's circular. It's the entire ecosystem, and it's all different levels of CPG players that will show up to make the community as a whole.
Something I've seen in my covered food is it's really hard to win in space, right? Can we talk more about sort of operation, but what you like to do?
Sorry, Brooks, you're pretty garbled. You may want to, just in case, throw your question in the chat, then we'll pick it up from there. But I guess just to give you a little bit of time to do that, perhaps I'd like to build on what Corinne just mentioned. I think that to kind of root the example of what the regional community can expect from programming and the connective tissue across the country. We have these big summit style events that essentially cross-pollinate ideas from very seasoned CPG executives, from very successful brands that we all know and love, and a lot of our emerging brands want to become. And so these summits really elevate these big ideas from all sorts of people from every part of the CPG ecosystem, while simultaneously taking that national connection and inspiration and activating it in the local community. And so Women in CPG, for example, we have an annual summit every year where we have 1,000 women attend virtually, but then they get to go back to their regional communities and actually meet the women in their community and support one another. And so I think that's really powerful that, all of our regional chapters, essentially, these are evergreen problems that everyone is facing across each chapter, right? And so I think that's a role that national can play, is really kind of elevating those big conversations while simultaneously rooting the connection and the activation in the local community. And I think that's one of the things that's really special about the network and the ecosystem that we're aiming to build.
While Brooks is doing that, I'm going to jump to the Q&A. And Darren, I know you put a question about attributes. That's an entire multiple hour long conversation around what attributes you want to look for. So we can work with some other investors in town on putting that together. But Alondra asked, how do you apply a racial equity and racial justice lens to the investments, priorities, and programs you run? And I know, Katrina, the national program you just launched is a great example. As part of Food Ag Ideas Week, we have a showcase strictly geared towards women and minority-owned brands that target sponsors. So there are a couple of ways this is focused and brought to the front. But Katrina, I'll let you talk about the MO program.
Yeah, so the MO fellowship program is a minority-owned fellowship program, and this year, actually today, we are about to send out our acceptance letters to 16 brands that will be a part of that program, and the application was a national application. And so that's one of the ways that, I think diversity on the shelf is extremely important to us. But before we can get them on the shelf, we have to move them further down sort of the maturity pipeline, right? And so the fellowship program focuses on earlier stage brands. And fun fact, we did have several brands from Minnesota apply for the MO fellowship program, and I'm not quite ready to announce it yet, but I think there's one or two Minnesota brands that got accepted. So I think that's, again, another demonstration of the connection. But I think on the network side of things, this is a big topic that we plan on doing a lot more work in. The MO fellowship program is really just the start of that. And so we're also collaborating with folks like Project Potluck, Jedi Collaborative, New Hope, and a few others to really kind of build out what enhanced allyship looks like in our industry. So not just creating access for founders of color, but also helping everyone else become better allies for founders of color. So I think it has to be both. So that's some of the things that we have planned.
And I'll build on that, Allison, while we're getting organized here around that question. Is just like, I think the other piece of this is that with national bringing that exposure, it goes both directions, right? We as Minnesota will bring different exposure to the national and what programs that we have available. And one of the things that I see so often, and this is the beauty of the network, is too often there's a lot of redundancy out there, or people are trying to address issues or concerns or take care or look at needs that really need to be addressed, such as diversity and such as capital, or such as just climate, any of those things. And so I think the hope of the overall network too is that we're moving the dial faster because we're interconnected, and because we know what's already available out there, and because we're being more resource and capital efficient by having these communities that can say, oh, look, naturally Minnesota is doing this. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's grab that best practice and use it over here, or let's replicate that, and vice versa. And I think that's the most exciting thing about a network as a whole, because then we can just improve our local food systems that much more rapidly, as well as understand, like, how are we going to have impact where we really need to have impact at the moment.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up this, I will say, in response to your question, Alondra, about these resources, I think the M&O application window is closed. Same for our showcase, because that's happening in 3 weeks. But in terms of getting in contact or getting involved, membership for the individual is how we like to really engage folks. So You can currently sign up for membership on the Grow North website, and I think it's still $75 for the year. So we'd like to keep it an accessible point. But after the launch party, then we'll be moving towards the Naturally Minnesota platform for that. And then I think it'll be $99 a year. So going up slightly, but that's, I think, the national level there. So, but access to a lot of the programs and resources and education and connectivity comes along with that.
And that's a really good point, Allison. I think that every single chapter and what we're doing on the national side, right? I think when we're talking about access to opportunities, making it accessible is a big priority for us. And so, we do have corporate memberships, but the individual memberships largely, kind of take up our kind of membership makeup, in the sense that we have more early stage brands that are part of that. And so the membership price is very reasonable, right? I think we're not a chamber of commerce where you kind of have to be a little bit more mature. We really want to welcome in as many early stage brands as possible, because you all are the future of the industry. And the better that you do, the better we can help shape and make impact together and serve the changing landscape of consumers as well, right? And so I think that racial equity and building access to opportunities for underrepresented founders is a key priority for us.
So should we move on to this question that Brooks put into the chat?
I can ask it if you're able to hear me now.
Yeah, we can.
Sorry about that. I will throw it to you first, Karine. Can you talk about Minnesota's potential as an even larger player in natural, organic, CPG, everything we're talking about? Where are we now? Where should we be? Where can we be?
No pressure.
It's kind of amazing is like, how many times in this talk can we use the word excited? Or, it's like, to me, the potential is unlimited on how we can continue to grow and build and influence the space. And I think the reason being is because we have all the parts to the puzzle that need to be put into play to really create a dynamic, robust system. And we can actually practice that at a local level, and then that model can be replicated. So our ability to go from producer, from grower, through manufacturer, through distributor, to retail, to customer, and keep going around in that circular economy is pretty amazing, because we have all of those pieces right here. And that ability to do, like I was saying before, at a level of resource efficiency and capital efficiency is probably really high. And plus, you got to remember, we're a state of cooperatives and collaborators. We just happen to have been really quiet about how well we're able to do that, and we don't toot our own horn enough. So I think the ability to put that model out there is exciting. I'll say it again; it's really exciting.
Yeah, same question to you, Allison, and then to Katrina. Based on what you've seen and what elsewhere, and what can be done here to be the best.
Yeah, I think Karine hit most of the high notes with what she shared. There's so many people doing so much work here. It's actually overwhelming at times, because when I talk to people, there's endless opportunities of how we could partner and connect and try and figure out new programming and things like that. And so I'm excited to have not only the national piece of this puzzle, where it's here's what all of the affiliates are working on. So maybe somebody already has something set up, right? I'm all about not reinventing the wheel. So if we say, hey, this has been a problem for us, has anybody seen this, done this, tackled it? Being able to expedite solutions, I think, will be great. But from a local standpoint, we are a huge grower-producer economy. We have a lot of processing. We have the most food scientists in any state. We have a really strong marketing and ad agency. When you think about the value chain from start to finish, we have all of those pieces, and they do work together. But, the tire joke is a lot of people work literally and figuratively in silos, right? They don't know the neighbor down the road is doing the exact same thing. And if they just partnered, they'd accelerate what's going on. And I think a unique opportunity from the grower value chain is, how do we get more local products into CPG products here, right? How do we have them sourced locally on that? And part of that problem is, does the producer have a place to process those ingredients on that scale? Do they have a place to get them tested? So if that CPG company wants to be at a co-man, they need a COA, a certificate of analysis, to prove that it's an okay ingredient to use. There's a lot of barriers to those types of things. So I think the better as a state to support the infrastructure to build that. I mean, Minnesota's in a unique spot. We have billions in surplus, right? How can we smartly as a government use those surplus to support infrastructure that helps, yes, the big industry side of things, but also helps, the small side. I mean, a lot of economic development comes from small companies. So how can we, further develop out? I think, we have a lot of companies in 0 to 1 million here. And there's a big drop off in that 500 to 1 million. And then there's an even bigger drop off in 1 million to 5 million. And so I think part of the question is, how do we better educate entrepreneurs to understand what is their end game? Is it a lifestyle brand? Is it there's there's big differences between I'm happy selling at a farmer's market to I want General Mills to buy me for $100 million or more, right? There's a wide range there. And I think the sooner entrepreneurs can figure out what their end game is, and then we can right size resources at the right time. So it's about smartly narrowing the filter a little bit so only the best get through. But then once we have, hey, these are good businesses, their business model makes sense, their COGS make sense, they have a right to win, the value prop is sound. Okay, how do we strap jet fuel onto those companies and get more unicorns coming out of Minnesota? I think that's the biggest thing we're missing here right now is there have been a couple of exits that we've had, but not nearly the quantity that some of these other cities have had. And so what I'm excited about is how do we get onto that pace with them, right? How do we really make that happen for our ecosystem? Because the more that happens here, then folks like Darren are going to be really excited about investing locally. I'm okay if we need to create FOMO and get outside coastal money to invest and then be like, well, you had the chance and you didn't. And now, you missed out on that return. So I think for us, the sky's really the limit in where we can go as an ecosystem because we have all of the pieces of the puzzle, which I think is a unique and wonderful thing for us versus some of the other places.
That's great, Allison. And I want to add the piece about natural and organic. I think we have just come out of a pandemic and we're still experiencing supply chain shortages within our industry and very, very challenged sometimes with getting the raw materials and the ingredients that we need, and particularly in natural and organic space. And if you paid attention to places like Costco, who have increased their organic sales by 30% within the last 2 years, that's significant. That's not insignificant. So do we have an opportunity, I will say totally biased and selfishly, to influence the agriculture system to do more and more rapidly in the space of doing more organic and transitional growing of products and looking at the agriculture system as a climate solution and being part of that solution. And so that is one of my personal hopeful goals in this network too, is the understanding of that we can make organic accessible and affordable for all, and it will help everyone involved.
Awesome.
So I think the power of the network too is we have the collective purchasing power, right? When we're talking about fighting climate change, we're talking about sourcing ingredients that may be too expensive for a smaller brand. We're working on some initiatives right now that we're hoping to really tackle and mitigate that, because the better the products are on the shelf, we really want to kind of democratize access to better food, better products, better beauty products, whatever the case may be, right? And so I think that the network can also bring some of that purchasing power to help influence and support Kareem's dreams of making more organic, sourcing that more cheaply and really helping to move the needle on making that change, because it's people putting their dollars where their mouth is what's going to matter. And what we're seeing, especially the last 2 years, is that this new generation of brands, that's what they demand. They may not have access to it yet because it's too expensive, but it's absolutely in their roadmap to get there. And so, they're really prioritizing that out of the gate, and you'll see that even in this MO Fellowship cohort that we'll announce in the next couple of weeks. Every single brand that got in, and I would say 90% of the applicants had sustainability and climate change as one of their top 2 priorities. And so I think that that's going to also influence the regional chapters and the resources in Minnesota. So, yeah, excited to support that change.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I was going to ask a bit, as long as you could still hear me. I was going to ask about sort of what's winning, and I think you're putting it very plainly, is natural, organic, sustainability focused products are what's moving in food. And how can you help educate investors, consumers, and businesses about how they take advantage of this moment in terms of building your business around that? Sort of a follow-up I had, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think one of the first ways, I think kind of low hanging fruit is just getting the data out there. And that's why it's partnerships with Spins, Nielsen IQ that really helps support that. So, I think that also helps to authenticate what brands are doing and helping them have those conversations and advocating for the values that they're really wanting to live through the brands that they're building when they're having those investor conversations. And then simultaneously, on the flip side of that, investors are also seeking that out more and more. And I think that we're seeing investor thesis change. We're seeing more funds and more investors very specifically lead with that. And so I think we're just scratching the surface of that. And so I'd love to hear from Allison and Katrina around what that currently looks like in your community.
I was going to say, you should go first, Katrina. You have a much deeper ingrained life story with the natural products community than I do.
Oh, that's a really big question, but I think what we're seeing is the fact that there's a lot of data, there's a lot of ability to support the opportunities, and the education piece is difficult. It's very difficult to connect all the dots. I don't think it's the customer that needs the education anymore. It's the system that needs it, in the food system. And I think that the disconnect might be in the ability for us to realize that it doesn't have to be a financial drain or loss to go down the path of organic and natural if you're not already there. And I think that the other side of this is that it's something that we've been building for a really long time, but we don't realize we were there up until World War II. We were always a natural and organic agriculture system, and getting that reminder that it's feasible and possible. And I don't really have a lot to add right now to it, but there's that ability to understand how to make that happen sooner and faster, I think, is there from a national perspective, because there are a lot of farmers that are doing that work right now. And there's a lot of organizations that are helping to understand that work. I think of like Green America and their regen ag work. There's a lot of regen ag work that's happening within the naturally network sector. And we have an opportunity to speak about that and learn about that more here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think the regenerative ag side is an interesting thing that I think General Mills has a commitment to 1 million acres. One of the ag focused events that we did this summer was actually going to Thousand Hills Lifetime Graze Regenerative Ag Farm, and getting to go out on their farm and hang out and learn about their practices and what they do in rotational grazing, and how they're able to put, carbon back into the soil and improve diversity on land and things like that. So I think we have a unique opportunity to lead in that space. I think the other thing that, doesn't get talked about, but is becoming more and more popular, is kind of this, food is medicine movement. And we have a mega health tech med tech cluster in Minnesota, and obviously a huge ag and food cluster, and they don't talk to each other. And as people are starting to look for more unique ways or different ways, which is preventative, right? Better health, better nutrition, better quality diets. How can the farming practices improve nutrient density and things like that? It's all part of the same system. So I think a unique space Minnesota might be able to lead nationally is how do we partner with those organizations, and what is the work that needs to be done? Because I think, Katrina, you're right. It's the systems piece that's the problem, right? We've been so set in our ways. This is how we do things. This is how insurance companies work. This is what you can get reimbursed for. They're just, a few of them are just starting to explore alternatives of maybe you get a CSA box, or maybe it's, other things that are supporting better diets to have more preventative medicine. So, I heard a joke the other day that was, people are either going to be killed from poor diets or climate change, and they're both the long game. So you won't know which is going to come first. And so I think we have a unique opportunity to really help usher in a different mindset about how do we treat the planet, how do we grow our food, and how does that show up in our daily lives.
Yeah, and I would add from the investor standpoint that in full disclosure, I'm the board chair of another organization called the Climate Collaborative, but I'm not volunteering here, I'm volunteering over there. And we're working on helping to educate investors on how to ask the questions of brands that are looking for investment around what their commitment is, what they see their role is in that change and making things happen. I mean, we all would like to grow at some point to be as big as Patagonia and be the next Yvonne Sherrard and be able to give $3 billion away to climate if we could, but which is so exciting. But I think the key to know here is that this is top of mind for everyone, climate and then diversity and equity. And alongside of that is you still have to be able to be profitable, and you have to have a profitable EBITDA over time and able to continue to support those things, because you can't support those things without positive EBITDA.
Lots to do is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw it out to the audience for questions. Please throw me in the Q&A.
You're still a robot, Brooks. But I'm assuming you're saying, please throw questions in the chat or in Q&A. We would love to answer them. I will take this moment as a shameless plug. Food Egg Ideas Week starts 2 weeks from today. If you were like, gosh, I wish Twin Cities Startup Week was really just diving into food and egg, FAI is your answer to your prayers. We'll have 4 days of content experiences, panels and sessions. Cargill's doing our keynote. So we've the theme of the conference is the interconnectedness of the global food supply with a focus on sustainability. So there will be leaders from across the country, from a lot of the major companies we have locally, perspective on a plethora of topics. It is the ultimate convening moment for the food and ag industry here. It is industry folks, entrepreneurs, service providers, lawyers, investors, professors, students, government folks, nonprofit leaders, truly the cross section. So if you're saying, hey, I really want to insert myself into the community and start meeting people, that is a great chance to do it. And our launch party is happening the first night of that at Mill City Museum, which you'll have access to the museum, and the grain elevator tours as a part of that. Watch the pitch slam, eat delicious food, drink and be merry. And thank you, Ben, for putting our link in the chat. Look at you, always on top of it.
Yeah, and the Flower Tower ride is a perfect historical event around food and egg. I want to do a shout out to the people, though, that have helped stand this organization up and have done a lot of heavy lifting. There's a whole board of directors behind Naturally Minnesota, and hopefully you can come out and meet many of us at the launch party for sure. But I just think there's many people that have been committed in creating this community so that you all have access to the things that continue to excite us and that help us build the community. And I really, like I said, once we get through Food Egg, this all happened really quickly, and I'll be excited when I can point to a page and say, go here and familiarize yourself with the people that are on the board and are putting their time into this organization and volunteering to make our ecosystem stronger and better. So that'll be coming soon, right, Allison?
It's all part of the infrastructure build out.
Yeah.
When I'm not planning a conference.
Well, and speaking of conference, if anyone from the Minnesota community is going to be at Expo East, Naturally Network has a whole agenda at Expo East, and will also have a booth. Our regional winners also have booths to kind of create this Naturally Network Pitch Slam Alley. We have in-booth programming. So if you're kind of a first timer at the show, or if you're looking to connect with other natural and organic, better for you founders, investors, retailers, we have a whole slew of events on our agenda. So I'll drop that link in the chat. So definitely would love to meet you if you're going to be out in Philadelphia in a couple of weeks, right before FAI.
Hopefully you can hear me now. Great. Only the fourth time I had to restart. I think just to put a final note on this, how about we each go around and say, this is why I'm excited. This is what's going to happen now and next and in the future to the benefit of those listening, the industry, the state, so many different stakeholders and players. Tell us about it. Allison, you first.
It's like, I know I'm going to be first up on this. The thing I'm most excited for is hopefully to have people fully engage. I know it's been hard with the pandemic. People were heads down, surviving, right? Especially if you had a small business. It's a lonely road being an entrepreneur. There's a lot of change. Corinne referenced supply chain issues, right? There are a lot of barriers that have come at entrepreneurs in the last few years. And this is really an opportunity to start fresh, come out and engage. And so I really encourage you to, attend, become a member. As I mentioned before, the community is only as strong as the individuals that make it up. And Minnesota is renowned for being a really community-based place. That's why people will withstand the horrible, horrible winters here and raise their families here. And I think it speaks volumes to the quality of life we have here. But it's just one of those things that I'm excited for, hopefully getting a broader and more diverse group of folks to engage at all stages and at all pieces of those value chain, because that's what's going to make the world go round for this.
Awesome. Katrina, you're next.
Yeah, I think just to build on what Allison said, absolutely. We really the membership is such a key component to the organization, and we would really love for you to join and be part of the community. But on top of that, I think that with the pandemic and us moving into more of an endemic, what we're seeing across every chapter is that every community has evolved tremendously. So we, kind of coming out of the pandemic, we can't assume what the community looks like because it's changed significantly. So as an example, in Austin, just in the last 18 months, I use Austin as an example a lot since I'm still here, but their last new member coffee had 25 brands that came to join the community, and almost all of them have recently moved to the area, and it's brands and founders that no one has heard of. And I would imagine that Minnesota is going to be very similar. You all have such a rich environment already that, I think you're pulling new folks into your community. So I think it'll be a great time to rediscover what the community looks like, what the resources are. And at the end of the day, that peer-to-peer support and hearing what your peers are working on, their obstacles, the resources that they're accessing, it will help accelerate you. And you also can contribute so much to others. So I really invite you all to join the ecosystem. I think more than anything, I love the members that come. Everyone is so welcoming and giving, and I'm positive that you'll find the same in this upcoming Nationally Minnesota membership. So yeah, we hope to see you.
Me, huh? So you've heard a lot about why we're all excited. I just wanted to share with everybody here. I'm the daughter of a Minnesota farmer and a Mediterranean immigrant. Interesting combination, right? But I grew up in Minnesota with Minnesota nice being one of the terminologies that we always hear. So before this presentation, I looked up the word nice, and it had in it, the definition has, enjoyable, pleasant, satisfying, but nowhere in there does it have humble or shy or cautious. Or so if we stop and think about it a little bit, it's an interesting thing because we have so much story to tell here in Minnesota. We have a huge story to tell, and we don't tell it, but yet we spend our time talking to entrepreneurs and as investors or as other companies saying, you really got to know your story, and you got to tell your story, and you got to say why you make a difference, and you have to really stand out about how you're going to, be meaningful in a very crowded, loud, busy space. And that's the case for all entrepreneurs, no matter what kind of product you're producing. And so my hope is that, and I expect it will, that by having this network together and working closer together, we'll just all get better at telling our stories, regardless of whether it's, X number of years, I won't say how old I am, of living in Minnesota alongside of working in the natural and organic space on a global level. But that's what I'm most excited about, because we all get to continue to learn and we all get to continue to be mentors. No matter where we are in the ecosystem, we are all of those things. So, I am so excited about meeting even more of my neighbors in my backyard who believe and have the same kind of passion that I do around this space. So.
Well put. Thank you, Corinne. It reminds me of something I was told by a film industry advocate up in Duluth who's trying to attract some industry, and that's stop telling people that Minnesota's cold. Don't tell people that that's the first thing about our state, right? We have so much more to offer, and I'm grateful I get to tell a lot of those stories, and I'm grateful I was able to moderate this panel today. Is there anything else anyone wants to add?
But how will Minnesotans, cope with having to talk about something if they can't talk about the weather?
I mean, to be fair, some of us like the cold. I'm one of the people that I look cuter in the cold. So I can't wait to come in the winter and wear all the gear that I can't wear in Texas.
Katrina, you and I can switch spots, and we'll do a house swap, and I'll move to
Sounds
Austin,
good.
and you can move to Minneapolis. It'll be great.
I love the fact that our state has all of the seasons and they have it so dramatically, because that recreates the toughness that we all are and brings that dynamic personality out in our work, right? You mentioned, Allison, how hard workers we are. I think that's one of the reasons why, because we have to stay warm. So we keep working hard to stay warm.
Resiliency is ingrained from an early age. Katrina, I don't know if anybody's ever mentioned the, Halloween blizzard of 91 to you, but
No.
I've got pictures. I want to thank all of you for having me here today. And it is, like I said, really thrilling to be working again in my own backyard, which it feels like I haven't done for a number of years. And I think that, continue to take advantage of what's happening here with Twin Cities Startup Week and just flow right into the next upcoming event. As Allison mentioned, the Food Ag Idea Week is just going to be so exciting. That the agenda is packed. It looks great. Thank you, Allison.
Back and in person at the Science Museum. So fun locales all week.
Yeah.
And it would be
I'm looking
remiss of me
forward
not to acknowledge Allison and her work on this and her willingness to just kind of run at the opportunity of combining Grow North and Naturally Network, and just that perseverance and tenacity of, we can find a solution no matter what. We'll find some kind of solution that's going to work. And I think that's what has made all of this work really well.
Let's just say I'm good not having to chat with General Counsel again for a while.
Oh, Allison, but you and I get to talk so much, so that I love that part.
That's
and
true.
I'm really looking forward to learning so much from your community. There's so much expertise in your community that doesn't exist in our other regional chapters. So looking forward to attending these upcoming events and all of the things that we'll do together.
So you got 2 minutes, people. Last chance for Q&A. Otherwise, I will plug, you should all go to the Minnesota Cup Awards ceremony tonight. Our winner of the Pitch Slam last year is the division winner for Food Ag Bev for Min Cup this year. So it was awesome.
Best time to join Naturally Minnesota, because we're developing, we're forming. Bring your ideas to the table too. Bring your voice.
I think we have one question in the chat. What type of support would you all be interested in? And I think, Allison, that's a good one for you.
When you say would we be interested in, who's needing the support and who's giving it? I'm unclear in this question.
And there's a Kingsley Calvo Jordan that asked this in the chat.
I see it, but I don't understand the question, I guess is what I'm saying.
Maybe just the organization.
I'll answer it. What kind of support do we need? We definitely need funding and financial support. That's always part of the equation, because your funding and financial support of the organization makes us be able to be accessible to emerging and young brands that are coming into space that don't have those resources. We need human resources to help continue to build out our work, our committees, our activities. And then we also, as we build the ecosystem, there'll just be a lot of opportunity for doing I would say, pairing with needs, right? Mentors, with people who need mentors, boards, all those kinds of things. So
from the founder startup perspective, one thing we will be doing is after FAI in middle October, middle to end, we will be putting together a founder group. We want to have founders from all different stages, the 0 to 1, 1 to 5, 5 to probably 50, and provide opportunity for founders to connect. We know that fellowship amongst founders is really important because it's nice to have someone else who's got the same struggles that you do, and you can say, how did you solve this? Or maybe there's
It's called peer therapy. You know, it's kind of like when I call you.
Exactly. So that's one thing, we'll be bringing that group together. But aside from the fellowship, we want to make sure we're putting out programming that's relevant. We want to make sure that it's serving the need that's out there, that we're not just saying, oh, we should do a co-man thing and then we do it. So, having the input and bouncing ideas off of that group is going to be an integral part of how we develop programming. It'll probably be a quarterly meeting that we say, here's what's in the hopper. Does this resonate? If so, great. If not, scrap it. Let's do something different. Because we really want this to be founder-centric, and make sure that what we're delivering is needed. Right? Otherwise, it's a waste of time, money, and resources, and we don't want to waste the precious little we have of all of that.
And that fall sun is hitting me right now, so it's a good time, I think, to say, have a lovely Minnesota afternoon.
Yes, it's beautiful here.
Thank you,
so
everyone.
much for having me.
Brooks, thank you for moderating and for being such a staunch supporter of our ecosystem. If you guys didn't see it, Brooks wrote a lovely article in the Star Tribune, which is the Minneapolis's main paper, on Thursday last week. So we were honored to have that coverage, and just keeping it top of people's minds as we go through this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Allison, Katrina, Corrine, and thank you everyone who joined us today. It's been an awesome day. Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Take care.